Hello, everyone. Long time no see. We are back. And welcome to the When We Were Kids, a Time Capsule Toys Podcast. Today we have, first off, before I introduce our guest, Toyhio returns February 8th. I almost said October because I keep forgetting what month it is. Because it's not November outside. First guest, Julia Hart. We also have Harley Cameron. Time Capsule Toys open 7 days a week. Speaking of Time Capsule Toys, we have one of our part-timers, Mr. Charlie, who I won't even attempt to say your last name because I butcher everyone's last name on the show.
My last name is a really complicated Polish last name, so I just go by Charlie Butters. It's my stage name, I guess.
So, yes, Charlie. How did you get the nickname Butters?
So my buddy Earl,
I never asked this.
My buddy Earl called me Charlie Butters one day, and it just kind of stuck. It was just that from that point on, he always called me Butters.
Okay.
And then when I was gonna podcast, I was like, well, my last name's too complicated, and I was like, let's figure out something that's different, and Butters stuck, and like that's literally what like pretty much everybody in wrestling knows me as. So any wrestler, if you say Butters, they know that you're talking about me. So
you can be like South Park Butters. That's me.
That's pretty much where I think he got it from.
So you mentioned wrestling, which we'll probably get into wrestling here in a bit. So growing up, you are how old?
I am 38.
38. So you're 5 years younger than me. Is there one toy in your head that sticks out from when you were a kid, when you're like, I'm going to collect, that made you think now at this age where you wanted to collect like action figures?
So figure-wise, it'd probably be like the second Toy Biz Wolverine when he was in like the yellow and blue attire.
Oh, the X-Men cartoon attire.
Yeah.
That's what I call it.
Yeah, that figure to me was like everything for my childhood. Like that's the first figure when I started to get back into collecting that I went and found on eBay and bought one mint on card, and I still have it to this day. And like if I were to get that signed by like Cal Dodd, the voice of Wolverine, it would be that figure. Like that's the holy grail to me. So I have that, and it wasn't expensive. It was like $30. So
yeah. It's such a cool figure.
Yeah,
Wolverine's also like my favorite superhero ever.
The bad part with it was the elbows would break. So like the one I had as a kid, his elbow broke, so I had to super glue it to where it was just like this instead of straight. I put it at the curve, and drove me crazy as a kid because like you need to have like at least some articulation. But yeah, that was the number one.
So with that being your number one, we have some photos here we'll be going over in a bit. I love this show, and it's show and tell. So that was the main figure from your childhood that you remember. Is there any other toys from your childhood that you're just like very nostalgic for, but you don't collect yet, but want to start collecting?
Yeah, the Ghostbuster ones. We've talked about it a couple times at the shop. Like they did the reissue, and I'm really tempted in those. And then I know your Toy Connection has the originals for like I think they're like $50 a piece, and they're in really good shape, but they're not on card, but they're really nice looking. And I'm like, those would be really cool to have. And I think he has the Ecto one as well from that. So that would be probably the next thing if I decide to jump into it. That's where I'll probably go.
Would you get now with the real Ghostbusters line? Would you just stay with like the Ecto one, the Ghostbusters, and like the Firehouse, or would you go down the rabbit hole of trying to get like Sludge Bucket and all the other ones?
I don't remember what ghosts I had. Like I solely remember having the Ecto one and having the Ghostbusters, but I don't remember having any of the ghosts. I'm sure I did, but I don't remember which ones. So I was kind of looking at the shop last night. We have the Stay Puft there right now, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like that would probably for sure be one I'd have. But I don't know. I really don't know if I would go any further because I didn't have the Firehouse either. I knew some kids that had the Firehouse, and it was insane to me to see it. Like at that point, we were much older, so I think we used it as like a base for like. For either G.I. Joes or for our X-Men, but I don't know. I don't think I'd get the Firehouse because I don't have any like nostalgia for it. So
yeah, the kids across the street from me, I wanted Ghostbusters so bad, and they had the Proton Pack, they had the Ghost Trap, and they had the figures, and I used to have to go over there and play in the garage with them because we didn't have them. Because my whole thing growing up was, if my parents bought it for us, it had to stay in the same realm of whatever toys they were buying for us. So, like Ninja Turtles, they would never buy me Ghostbusters because it was Ninja Turtles. If I get my birthday money, I could get whatever I wanted, but
right,
or money for Christmas. But we never got. Every time I went to the store, it was just like I'd have $20 burning a hole in my pocket. I'd go there and I'd get like Undercover Donatello. Saw Viper from G.I. Joe. This is the one birthday where I got $20 and this is what I bought. And the Shark Cruiser from Hot Wheels because I only had enough money to buy a Hot Wheel when I was done.
So one Christmas, that kind of reminds me of this. It was one Christmas. I wanted this. I wanted X-Men figures. That was the whole thing. I wanted X-Men figures. Well, they had this like. It was like a museum of X-Men figures, and it was the X-Men figures, but they were glued to the
Mutant Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
I had it.
Yeah. So they got me that, right? Because they're like, oh, like you should be able to take them off. Well, no. Like I literally broke a figure taking it off, and I was like, this is not what I wanted. Yeah, I was like, this is so stupid, right? So my mom was like, okay, we'll take it back to Toys R Us, and you can get a bunch of figures. I was like, all right, cool. And my cousin and them were going with us at the time, and my cousin was convinced that how many ever figures I was getting, he was getting more, even though he wasn't returning anything. Like he had no play in this. Like I was the one that was going to have all the money to spend on the figures. And I think he just did it to make me angry because he kept saying like for every like one figure I was thinking of, he was like, oh, I'm going to get these two. And I'm just like, that's not how that works. Like you don't have any money. And I got to talk to him about this because I just thought of that and it was so ridiculous. I remember being so angry and he got really upset when he realized he wasn't getting any of them.
So I had that. It was the X-Men Mutant Hall of Fame. The one level was like all the good guys. Mm-hmm. Other level was all the bad guys. It was Toys R Us exclusive. Because I got it, and I thought it was like the coolest thing ever. I have no idea whatever happened to it. I never saw it at a garage sale. I never saw it anywhere. So it very well could be lost at my parents' house somewhere, and I just don't know it. But I had it because I was collecting all the X-Men figures for the longest time. And then I got mad and jealous because my cousin got Mortal Kombat 2. And I wanted it, and my parents wouldn't buy it for me. So I literally returned all my X-Men that were on the single cards. Mm-hmm. I returned them all to get Mortal Kombat 2. And then they were like, was that like Ames or something? They're like, this is a lot of X-Men figures. And my mom was just like, oh yeah, he got them all for his birthday and didn't want them. Because I had so many. Because I remember when I was collecting the X-Men figures, the hardest ones to find for some reason were Colossus and Nightcrawler. And the one you would see pegs upon pegs upon pegs of was Forearms. And like because no one wanted that stupid figure. He looked stupid. He had like a perm and forearms and suspenders. Like there was nothing to him. He was awful.
Just remember that Shatterstar. Shatterstar made no sense to me because his swords were like sideways. They weren't the right way. I mean, because it's a toy, you can't have swords.
Yeah, I don't like Shatterstar either. I think version 2 of Shatterstar was better than version 1. I think that's the one where he was blue. I think.
Yeah, I think so. Because
the first one was white.
Yeah.
But I never liked Shatterstar anyway, so I thought he looked dumb.
He popped up in Deadpool 2, so that was our nice little thing of him, and he got killed, so that was good.
Growing up, did you have a go-to store?
Man, I definitely remember, like, when we would go shopping, we would go to Hills, Ames, and Valley View. And the Valley View, I remember, was in Brookfield.
Yes, because I used to go there to meet the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah. And I remember that was like our last stop. But when we would go shopping when I'd go shopping with my mom, it was usually Hills, Ames, and then Valley View. And I miss like all those shops. I miss Hills. I miss Ames. I miss having Toys R Us. Like I miss all those places. Like,
yeah, growing up, we had a Hills in Champion, and I never really. My mom wouldn't bring me there to buy toys. It was only school clothes. The Ames was on Elm Road, and the only time I ever the one memory I have from that Ames of buying toys was that birthday where I got $20 and I got that undercover Donatello and stuff.
Was that Ames? Was that in the plaza where where Taco Bell is now? Like, was it in that back?
Yes, because at the end
of
it,
movie theater in there.
Yeah,
too.
It was Warren Twin Cinema.
Yes, because that's where I saw Street Fighter at like 11 o'clock on a school night, and I'll never forget that. That my mom took me.
The only time I ever went to that theater ever, I was in high school, and I went and saw one of the greatest cinematic masterpieces ever made, a little movie called Biodome. That was the only time I ever went to that movie theater.
Yeah, man, that was, and then I remember.
I think it closed shortly after that.
Maybe it wasn't Champion. For some reason, I keep thinking the Hills that I remember was over by the mall where like Best Buy is now.
Yeah, there was a Hills there.
I think there was. Yeah, okay. So fun story about that. I'll never forget this. I whined and begged, and my mom was going to let me get a slushie from their little concessions. I filled it up about 3/4 full, and the person's like, you gotta stop, it's gonna overflow. And then it just overflowed everywhere, and I kept walking from where it was over towards the door as it just kept overflowing out of the cup, and I just made a giant mess, and then I just left it all and left. I was so embarrassed as a kid, like I didn't know what to do. I was like, they're like, you gotta stop, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And they're just like, they just watched it happen, and I'm just like, so I feel bad for that employee, whoever that was, that had to clean that up.
Hills was like the place. I loved watching the Hills commercials at Christmas time because of the Sprite. And the one Toyhio, I actually got a Sprite from somebody.
Oh, yeah?
Like Hills stuff is like Hills. I'm all about Hills merch because that's like Hills where the toys are, and it's so hard to find Hills stuff. Like I want a Hills vest so bad. I would love to have a Hills basket. There's so much other stuff.
There's got to be somebody out there.
There is.
Is it just super pricey?
Rick Mattia once scored a bunch of Hills stuff, but I think he kept it all for himself.
Like I remember going to Hills, and I remember sitting in the basket, and it was when the Turtles came out. They had the layaway set up as you go through. It was like they had it all like blocked off or whatever, but they had like one whole thing, and it was nothing but the Turtles figures. So as you were going through, you could get the Turtles and put them in layaway for Christmas, and that was the Turtles era, I guess. So we definitely got those for Christmas because I remember my cousin and I being like going over all of them and like which ones we wanted and this and that, and like but we had already gotten everything out of the toy aisle, so we didn't need any of the other ones. But I remember looking at them there as we were waiting to put them in layaway for Christmas.
So like I said, Hills was always my go-to spot, even though I never got like anything from there. Ames. One story, if my buddy Seth listens, the one story there's those certain points of times that you'll remember the certain store or whatever, like my undercover Donatello that I got at Ames. That same Ames, I'll never forget walking out. My buddy Seth and his mom were walking in. And I'll never forget Seth looking at me and going, Rick, you'll never believe it. I just got the Transformers movie. And I said, I'll be over when you get home. I sat in my yard and just stared at his house, waiting for his car to pull in. The second he got home, I ran over there. We watched the Transformers movie. His mom walked down, like we were watching it in the basement because that's like where we would play and watch TV or whatever over there. His mom was like, "Oh, how is it?" I just looked at her and go, "They swore." Like, I didn't care that Optimus Prime died. I cared that they said, I cared that they swore.
Oh, that's amazing.
But, like, it was just like, God, yeah, Ames. Because then usually I got a lot of my stuff from Hopkins Pharmacy in Cortland.
I remember going there. Yep.
That's no longer there. I don't know what the world is now, but
I think it's a rental place for like heavy equipment.
Okay. But because that's where I got my food fighters, my army ants, and all that type of stuff. Do you remember? I got pictures here. I'm just gonna go off. I'm not gonna show them yet, but I want. Do you remember the worst Christmas you ever had?
Oh man. Honestly, I don't remember.
Or the worst Christmas gift you ever got? Everyone has that one.
I mean, the worst Christmas gift is always
fruitcake,
like clothing that didn't fit, like from like a family member that just like wasn't with it. Like, I take care of my grandma now, and she for the longest time would try to buy all us grandkids matching like shirts and stuff like that, and she would I don't know where she got her sizes from because she would always guess like the most ridiculously small size for me, and I'm like, I am not a small person. I've been a chunky kid forever. I mean, it feels like, and absolutely never ever could have any of the matching stuff with them because they either A, didn't make it in that size, or she just got it in such a small size that it was just. So that was always one. I mean, I remember. Oh, you know what? I remember for Christmas one year, I got a sweeper because my mom wanted a new sweeper for Christmas, and my dad wouldn't get my mom a sweeper because he didn't want to buy her it was one of those faux pas of buying your wife stuff to clean with for a holiday. So I got the sweeper, but it was really for her. So that would probably be my worst Christmas present.
I have a funny story about a sweeper for Christmas. My grandma was the worst gift giver ever. Ever. And by I say ever, I mean I have a laundry list of awful gifts that she gave us. The one year she gave my mom a vacuum that was used. My mom opened the vacuum, unwrapped it, and was like, "Oh, thanks." We left. She's like, "I don't need a vacuum. Why the world should she buy us a vacuum for?" She brings it back. Of course, my grandma goes, "Well, if you don't like it, here's the receipt. You can return it." And mind you, my grandma would buy the gifts years in advance and just sit on them and then go, "Oh, holiday's coming. Let me go upstairs and find something." Well, she gave her this vacuum and we returned it to it was probably Sears. The employee's looking at it, and they go, "We can't even use the receipt because it's so old." They had to pull out a catalog that gave them the number, and then they're inspecting it, and they opened up the vacuum, and they pulled it out, and they go, "Ma'am, this vacuum was used." My mom was like, "What?" She goes, "This was just given to me as a Christmas gift." And the vacuum was bought 5 years prior, and my grandma used it and put it back in the box.
Wow.
That's how my grandma was.
Wow.
She was ugh. The one time I don't know if I mentioned this story or not before. One time she bought me a magic set for Christmas.
I think you mentioned something. No,
and I returned it to get Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game. Yeah. Because I'm like, why would you buy me a magic set? I don't like magicians. I don't want to learn magic. And God is another one of her stories is when she bought me a sweatshirt and told me, well, if it doesn't fit you, return it. Well, it didn't fit me. And it was at Sears once again. All I got from the boys department, we had in this point in time when you had to go to the certain
specific,
like the specific, what would you even want to call it, section or whatever. Like,
right.
So we're at the boys section. No, men's. No, women's. No. Finally, the girls. She gave me a girl's sweatshirt for Christmas. It was just like a green sweatshirt. Nothing to it, just green. And yeah, I'm like, she was the worst.
I mean, you'll wear like girls' Halloween outfits, so maybe she was.
Well, that was years later. I was young.
She was prime. She knew. She had that. She's like, I'll wear women's clothing. It'll be all
right.
He'll
wear women's clothing eventually for Halloween, but he should be able to wear this girl's sweatshirt all the time. I just now noticed what you're wearing in this photo. So the reason why I mentioned worst Christmases is one, I hate train sets, and I hate people who think that everyone should have a train set at Christmas time. But who's that in the photo with you?
That's my grandmother.
All right, your grandmother obviously does not want you to play with the train set because she's grabbing at your arm, but you're also wearing a Ghostbusters uniform.
Yeah, I think that was the same Christmas as the Ghostbuster stuff because I got that Ghostbusters jumpsuit and I had the proton pack. So then I have a photo, I couldn't find it, but it's me with the proton pack with like the Nerf piece coming out and standing on my bed with the whole outfit on, and then the Ghostbusters 2 poster on my wall behind me. And I couldn't find it, but I remember taking that photo. And I was big into Ghostbusters. That was the move. I'd watch those 2 movies all the time.
Speaking of Ghostbusters, we'll go into the Ghostbusters photos. So this had to have been, everyone has their best Christmas. I remember mine to the T. It was also the year I found out Santa Claus was not real because I found yellow beanbag chairs in my parents' closet. And I'm like, why do they have beanbag chairs in their closet? And then I got them for that Christmas. So, because that Christmas I got a yellow beanbag chair. I got my Nintendo Super Mario Bros. 3, DuckTales, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles soundtrack on cassette. I don't remember what else. Those are the main things that stick out in my head. Mr. Charlie here had the craziest Christmas ever of... Right there's Winston from Ghostbusters. Posing very shocked and happy. Ecto 1. Where his parents must have been balling this Christmas.
My dad worked at the mill, so like I think this was in '89 because I think my brother had passed a couple months prior, and because he's not in any of the photos, and so this was right before we moved. So I would have been like 4 maybe.
So then there's Bray. You got the proton pack. All right, there's the ghost trap. And then what appears to be a crock pot.
I think there's a pinball machine in there too, I think, somewhere.
I think it's a crock pot at least. No, it's a pinball machine.
Is it a pinball machine?
Yeah, I see the N, the B, the A-L-L machine. It looks like a crock pot.
I don't know what kind of machine it was. I don't think it was a Ghostbusters one. But it's really funny that we had that blanket forever, too. I miss that blanket. And I look exactly like my dad now. So he had to be in his 20s.
Oh, right there's the Ghostbusters uniform.
There you go. So, yeah, grandma was later that day. So that was early in the morning. And then later that day was that train photo. Because so here's the thing. So I was a bad kid. So that I was snooping and I found that train. So I knew I was getting a train because I told my mom or somebody about it. So they told her, obviously, like, he found the train set. So we opened presents, and that train wasn't one of the presents. And that was their way of teaching me a lesson about snooping around. And then it was set up in the family room, or in the living room.
And then your grandma was like, "Don't touch that train."
Yeah.
This might have been what happened after Charlie tried to touch the train. His grandma threw him down the steps.
So that's our like patio at the newer house in Cortland, and I would just be out there playing and fell asleep. I was playing with the guy. There's a bunch of like the knockoff GI Joes around me, and some other vehicles.
Yeah, I see you got the Batmobile, and you ripped the windshields off of it, which is a very common theme with the Kenner Superpowers Batmobile. And then hiding over here by the stairs, I see the Jurassic Park Jeep.
Yeah, I had a bunch of those. Sometimes the G.I. Joes would fight the dinosaurs.
Then you also must have got a Kenner Aliens figure.
Yes, that was the blue gorilla one that we had at the shop forever. It always reminds me of that's the one I had.
Never had any of those. Everyone went crazy for them too after what was it? Romulus came out.
Mm-hmm. So they came out with like a 2-pack AVP 2-pack with a Predator and an Alien. I got that, and then like I got a bunch of the Predators, and I wanted more Aliens, and but they really were kind of like not as available, I think, but my buddy at summer camp had all of them, so we would bring them all in, and we'd have these giant battles. There'd be like me, my buddy, and like one other kid, and we'd be like setting up these like giant battles, and then like all the other kids at the summer camp would stand around and watch us play with them, and watch us tell these stories with all these figures and stuff. It was wild. It was a wild time. Summer camp was really like a daycare. It wasn't really summer camp. It was like a daycare.
How old were you when this happened?
Yeah, I wasn't quite. I had to be like, I don't know, 9, 10, 11. I was one of the older kids there. I wasn't when I started, but by the time like I left, I was like the most popular, but I was the oldest kid there by a lot. Because I just went there to like play with people. Like that was the thing. Was like sitting at home. I could stay at home because my buddy did and stuff, but there was nothing to do at home, so I was bored. So like that was a way for me just to go play with other kids. And once my buddy like he got to that age, we were all like little bad kids swearing. Like he started just not coming. Like he would just stay at home instead and hang out at home and probably play video games and do other stuff. But I still came for like the longest time, and then eventually my time came to an end. But it was a lot of fun. We used to play. That's where like I bought that Star Wars figure because we did Star Wars for a while. We did Alien versus Predator. I was like teaching them like the kids how to play Magic the Gathering because my cousin got me into that. So like I was teaching everybody how to play Magic, and I had a bunch of like just basic decks. And, like it was just letting people play, and like just it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Is there a certain thing from when you were a kid? Like, I know recently you rediscovered the Swamp Thing cartoon.
Yeah, watched all those episodes.
All 5?
All 5 one day at the shop, yeah.
So is there any cartoon from your childhood that you're like, you want to go down the rabbit hole of toy collecting? Or is there any cartoon from your childhood that you're like, man, I wish there was toys? Because the reason why I bring this up was I kicked myself for not buying it. I was at Maryland a couple weeks ago. Someone had Denver the Last Dinosaur plush. But I'm almost positive it should have had a guitar, so I didn't buy it. And I also didn't look it up either to see if it was supposed to have a guitar.
Not really. The stuff I remember watching all had, I wish like when like Mortal Kombat Defenders of the Realm and like Street Fighter, when they started like doing the G.I. Joe figures, I kind of wish they had their own line that was less G.I. Joe. But it was cool that they like worked with G.I. Joe figures, so you could kind of like play with all of them still.
Yeah.
But everything else I really enjoyed. Like, I mean, the main ones, Power Rangers, Turtles, they all had lines, so there wasn't really anything.
What was your favorite Ninja Turtle action figure?
The movie Leonardo figure. He was my favorite because he had the squishy arms, kinda.
Yeah.
And but he looked like movie accurate to me, and I was a big Leonardo fan. So obviously, if the
movie accurate Charlie on his birthday.
That's right. So I mean, Leonardo was my guy. So like that figure was my favorite. I remember having the sewer play set and having him and like some of the other turtles, and then like I had like Taka, Razor, Shredder, Super Shredder, and stuff like that, and like their base was like across, like literally just right across the thing, and my cousins came up from New Jersey and they're like, why is their base so close to the Turtles base? You have all this room. It could be across the room, and they could have their own base over there. And I'm like, because I want it right here so they can attack them. Like,
I just looking at this photo, it reminded me of something that I forgot even existed from when we were kids. Those wicker things that would hold your paper plates. So they would make them more sturdy.
Yeah. So if you look on my wrist on there too, I have the Turtles watch.
I couldn't. Is that what that is?
It's a Leonardo Turtles watch. Like I remember we just sold one recently, or got one in at the shop. I think you sold it at Toyhio, but obviously I wore mine. But yeah, those were bulky and like it clipped up, like it had a clip. It clipped over. Yeah, that was.
Now you didn't have to share that cake with anyone else. It was just your name on it, right?
No, that was just mine. Nobody else in the family had a birthday that close. Everybody else was at the end of the month, and they got their own.
Speaking of birthdays, here you go. Here's another Charlie photo. He's opening up some TMNT roller skates.
I have never been able to roller skate ever. I don't know. I got those. I had rollerblades at one point too that were like blue and hot pink. Still never roller skated. Never was a person that could do that.
I could rollerblade. I could never roller skate. I don't understand how or why, but I couldn't do it ever. You're a big wrestling fan. When did you start getting into wrestling? Like, did you start when you were growing, like younger, or was it when you were older?
So I remember like the Hogan era stuff, like 89, 90, because I remember him losing the Royal Rumble to Ric Flair, because my mother's stepfather would get the pay-per-views and we would go over and watch them, and I had passing interest in it. It wasn't really anything I was really into, but I do have like distinct memories of like that happening and when Undertaker tombstone Hogan on and beat him. But I didn't really get into wrestling until December of 97. I was at school in the library, and these kids that I was hanging out with, wasn't friends with them, just kind of hanging out with them at that day, were putting together their list of who they thought was going to be in the Royal Rumble. And they were naming off all these names. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. And I convinced my mom to let me watch like the first half hour of Raw, because it was on at 9 o'clock and my bedtime was 9. So I remember sitting there, and it was the episode where Stone Cold threw the Intercontinental belt off the bridge that was The Rock's. And I remember like just instantly, Stone Cold's my guy. He's awesome. This is so cool. He's such a badass. And I had like a little napkin, and I put Austin 316 on it. I was like, yeah, this is like, because people had signs. Like, I was a stupid, like almost preteen.
People had signs. I had a napkin.
I had a napkin at home. That's what I had. And then my cousins started to get into it, and we got the Royal Rumble when he won the Rumble. And then the next pay-per-view was No Way Out. And we had a big party at our house, and we had all our family over, and we watched No Way Out. And I was addicted from that point on. It was wrestling 100% of the time. I got rid of all my Marvel figures, all my DC figures, gave like all my cards that I'm now recollecting, threw everything into a yard sale that summer, sold it all so I could buy more wrestling. And I had almost every Jakks bone crunching figure. There was a Christmas where I got every single figure from every single available wave that Christmas. My mom got me every 2-pack, every single figure from every single wave that was available. She, all out, I had every single figure. And that was it for the longest time. And then when I turned like 19, I got rid of all that, gave it all to my younger, my friends from Canada. They had a couple kids. They were younger, loved wrestling, so I gave it all to them because they still played with them all the time, and I really didn't. And that was the end of collecting for the longest time.
Growing up, I was a big wrestling fan. I used to watch Saturday mornings with my uncle, who I don't talk to anymore. And I was like the biggest Ultimate Warrior fan. Now watching his matches now, I'm like, God, he's terrible. Like, I can't even watch. Everyone's like, oh, wrestling was better back in the day. I honestly can't even watch that old stuff because it's so boring.
It's so basic, yeah.
It's like punch, leg drop.
So here's
for like 20 minutes.
I'll tell you a fun story about the Ultimate Warrior. Not a lot of people know. Originally, when he was still the Dingo Warrior, he was supposed to go to Japan and become Vader. The character of Vader was created, and they wanted him to do it. Well, he ended up signing with WWE instead. And then Leon went on to become Vader. This wrestler named Leon. He went over and became Vader, Big Van Vader. So originally, it was supposed to be the Ultimate Warrior. It was supposed to be Vader. So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
I met Vader before. He was wearing sweatpants that were covered in cigarette burn holes and not friendly at all.
I've heard that he was not a friendly person from some people that worked for AIW, that when he came in and worked there, they had to deal with him and said he was not a very nice person.
Yeah, he was like miserable.
I mean, after, probably in his later years, he's probably in so much pain that he can't help but just be a miserable person, but I don't know.
I don't know. He was like, my friend wanted to meet him. I'm like, he's like, is he wearing sweatpants? I'm like, yep. And they have cigarette burn holes.
I guess it could be worse. It could be like where people were meeting Ahmed Johnson and he had a sweatpants with a hole in the crotch so you could see everything.
Oh, Ahmed.
Or he was Big T when he was in WCW.
I wish someone could bring back WCW, but just get all the crappy talent that's all I want it to be, is WCW with all the crap talent. So like The Wall, Kwee-Wee.
Oh, so bad. Dude, when they moved away from having
Disco Inferno,
luchadors for their cruiserweight division, and to having like these like super mid, like just awful white guys doing cruiserweight wrestling, it was so bad. Like, it was awful for the longest time. Like, when they moved away from like Juventud and Psychosis, and like they unmasked Ray, and like just, I mean, there was nobody. Like, there was nobody for the longest. It was awful.
I used to watch WCW before Raw came on.
I wasn't allowed. We were a WWF house. You can only watch the one.
I only watch it because I'm waiting for Raw. So like, I just put it on. I'm like, man, this is like not good. That, and also at this point in time, like, I hated the NWO. Like, hated them. Thought they were terrible. I hate Hogan. Always hated Hogan.
The bad part was, like, would be, like, so I'd have to watch Walker because that was what was on before Raw. And, like, my family wasn't even paying attention to the show. Like, they were just, like, they were busy, like, doing other things in the house. But I still wasn't allowed to watch WCW. It made no sense. So eventually, we had satellites. So eventually, I had my own satellite in my room, my own cable, my satellite box, and my own TV. I didn't have TV in there very often because I was always bad in school. So, like, my grades weren't good. So then I didn't have television in my room. But during the summer, I got my TV back. So and all summer long, they would replay Nitro starting at 11 o'clock. They would replay it. So I would watch Raw and then I would watch Nitro on the West Coast feed at the appropriate time all summer long. But I wasn't allowed to. And that was only because I could stay up in my room and do it. If I had to watch it on the family TV, not allowed to watch WCW.
Who is your favorite wrestler of all time? Or who is your favorite wrestler of all time?
Oh, man.
You can't just pick one. You can give me your top three.
So, Stone Cold forever, because he's really what got me back into it. When he kind of wound down his career and wasn't when he had surgeries and was gone, Jeff Hardy became my favorite. And more recently, I would say Kevin Owens. Watching him on the Indies, getting to meet him, he's forever been one of my favorites. I don't watch WWE as much as I used to. I watch more AEW now. And I really wish Kevin Owens would go to AEW because I think he would just do better there. So
I agree. Because his matches could be way better, and he could do more than 4 moves.
Punk carried me for a while. A lot of people talk about the pipe bomb and stuff like that. I was a big Punk guy before that. Really wasn't a Danielson guy. But in the last year, I've really become a huge Danielson fan, and I go back and watch a lot of his ROH stuff. So actually, I take back Kevin Owens. I'd say probably Bryan Danielson is my third person there because his career has just been awesome all the way through, and how he ended it this year was really cool. So
my number one's Jericho.
Jericho.
Tommy Dreamer was in my top 3 for the longest time until that Flair incident. Another one, Mike Awesome.
Mike Awesome was really cool.
Until he went to WCW.
Oh, dude, when he was the fat chick thriller. Oh, it was awful.
Or that 70s guy.
Yeah. Awesome.
When he dropped Shaggy 2 Dope on his head off the top of that bus.
That was pretty cool. You can see he tried to grab him and he just slid right off.
He just landed right on his head. Awesome was, oh God. Him was ECW One Night Stand, him versus Masato Tanaka.
That was probably not even their best match of the ones they had. The one that was up there. It was probably their number 2 best match. But there was one from ECW TV when it was on TNN. It was on New Year's Eve. I remember watching it at my buddy's house because I would see ECW every once in a while, but I would forget that it was on. But I really liked what I saw, and it was Tanaka and Awesome for the belt. And I remember sitting there just as they went back and forth, I'm I couldn't tell who was gonna win. It was the coolest thing ever, and they were using tables and chairs, and it was just one of the best matches I've ever seen. And he is definitely a guy that doesn't get enough credit. That awful era of WWE being the only thing in existence really ruined a lot of really good wrestlers, I think. Him, Canyon, Bam Bam, a lot of them guys died in that era where there was nothing else.
Yeah, Bam Bam's probably in my top 5.
Now, as I'm older and I'm a bigger guy, I would see I could pattern myself after that guy if I was a wrestler. I feel I could do what he did. I used to be able to do cartwheels no problem, for the longest time. So Bam Bam doing cartwheels and everybody being like, look how athletic. And I'm like, that was me. I could do that at one point.
You brought up TNN, which brings up a thing to me. I don't know if you'll remember it. I don't know if anyone else listens to this will remember it. But I guarantee people will start hitting up YouTube to remember it. The thing that came on after ECW.
Roller Jam.
Yes. Who was your favorite team?
Like I said, I watched maybe 3 episodes of ECW TV. I don't remember what the teams were.
The correct answer will always be the Sun Dogs.
The Sun Dogs.
Because they had a guy named Posse Shalene.
Posse Shalene? What?
Yeah. Don't ask me why I remember that.
That is like some deep trivia. Like, I don't know.
Because then there was the Enforcers. Oh, my God. Like, I think there was a team called, like, the Quakes. I forget the other ones. But I'll never forget Posse Shalene and the Sun Dogs. The colors were, like, red and yellow.
That's wild.
I used to love it. Then one day it was off, and then they put on, like, the world's worst American Gladiators ripoff, a little show called Battle Dome.
Battle Dome.
Oh, I think that was on TNN. It might be on something else, but I used to watch it all the time. And now I'm going to leave here and go pull up old Battle Dome clips. So, with you working at the shop, everyone likes hearing shop stories, especially really bad ones. Like, someone actually just reached out to me last week or 2 weeks ago with their favorite story from a shop, which was when Ron from Your Toy Connection, the guy fell through all of his Funko Pops. Which Ron actually told me that the guy came back like a month or so ago they do this thing called the Ravenna Balloon Affair. Ron ran outside, took a picture of the guy. He goes, "That's the guy who fell through the Funko Pops." He sent it to me. But do you have any favorite bad stories from working at the shop?
I mean, I'm pretty lighthearted with a lot of stuff. Like, it felt really weird, like, when you would tell me some of the stories and, like, almost like how jaded you were with, like, people. And I'm just like, oh, no, like, they're just whatever. And, like...
And then it happens to you.
Yeah, then, like, it started... Like, I had a guy call. This was literally last week. The guy called, told me this whole sob story about how his mom died, like, 5 years ago and left him 300 Beanie Babies. And he wanted to know if we were interested in them. I told him, no, we don't do Beanie Babies. I was like, I don't know of any place that does. He's like, okay, no problem, thank you. Hung up. Not 5 minutes later, he called back. Gave me the same exact spiel. I'm like, I answered the same way. Like, I always answer, Time Capsule Toys, how can I help you? It didn't click that you just called the same place. He gave me the same spiel. And then he's like, after I told him no, then he's like, wait a second, did I just call you? I was like, yeah, this is the second time you've talked to me today. And he's just like, babies. You have 2 different numbers in the phone book. And I'm like, I don't think we do.
Because you just called the same number twice.
And he's like, all right, have a good day. That one really just like stunned me. I've learned to like kind of pick up on certain things when people say certain things on the phone now, because a lot of them will call before they come in, because it seems like a lot of people are just trying to like ditch their junk now. And it's a lot of like innuendo of like that they have dolls and certain stuff like that. So I kind of give them the spiel of like, no used baby dolls. It's got to be in packaging. And then they try to bring us porcelain dolls. And I was like, no, we don't do porcelain dolls like at all. Like, stuff like that. I had a guy that was like really like adamant about buying a G.I. Joe vehicle and then like wanted a discount on it. Talked to you. You gave him a discount on it because it was missing something. And then he still said it was too much money and didn't buy it. That really annoyed me. After he made me take it out, hold it, go over everything with him, let him look at it, like put hands on it, and then he's like, "Oh, it's still too much." I'm like, "He gave you a discount. Like, you asked for one, he gave you one. I wouldn't have even done that. Like, I'm surprised he just gave you something." So, but I've learned, like, I've picked up a lot of stuff in like the 4 or 5 months I've worked for you. Like, I'm getting like really good at like kind of eyeing certain things and kind of getting an idea of what they probably cost, or if they're like, if there's any like possible value to them. So it's kind of interesting.
What do you think is the craziest thing that you've seen walk into the shop? I have an idea in mind of what you saw come in, but not.
So there's been two different ones. The one being my first ever trade-in that I did, which was like a giant, really good Star Wars collection.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That being my first was really shocking, and I'm glad that like you're so close that you can just like roll in and like look it all over. So I got to take 8 million photos, because that was just like overwhelming to me. I'm glad Tunza was there too, because he was like, "Oh, I'll take care of this other smaller one." He's like, "Oh, and then when Rick comes in, we'll deal with this." And like he like calmly like walked me through it, because I would have freaked out if it was just me.
Yeah, because that guy brought this Star Wars in like the world's oldest microwave box.
Yeah. And then that giant wrestling one that came in the day I walked in, and there was just like 5 or 6 totes of just like all those classic superstars, all the Jacks, and then the R3s and stuff, and all those loose ones, and then all the loose Hasbro and that carded 1-2-3 Kid on top that was mint. That was probably like one of the crazier ones I've seen.
That one was crazy because the guy just didn't call or anything. He just drove an hour and goes, "Are you guys buying wrestling?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Okay, I got a couple of things in my car." And I look out the window, I see him open up the back of his SUV, and like stuff's just falling out of it. I'm like, "A couple things? You literally filled your entire car with wrestling."
Which one did you think I was going to say?
The ROH title.
That one was like that collection was really crazy too. That was on your buy day, and it had not only did he have the ROH title, he had like all those lightsabers. He had all those UFC figures, which was like almost a complete collection, plus like some of the ultra rares that are like encased in plastic.
And then, he had the ROH title, and then he had those UFC, WEC, and Pride Kids titles bringing in the packaging.
Which those are like big money. Those are super rare to find.
That freaking HasLab Proton Pack.
Yeah, the HasLab Proton Pack that was insane. And like just turning that on and getting to see it in person. Like my buddy Justin has one. And like, but I've never seen it in person. So like him turning it on, hitting the switch and it turning on and making the sounds and stuff. And I was just like, "Oh, that's so cool." Like in a different world, that would probably be, instead of the toy one, which I saw somebody was selling for like $125, a really good condition toy one. Having the almost real thing replica would probably be up there with like if I was going to do a whole Ghostbusters thing, that would probably be one I'd have to own.
I honestly, I thought you were going to say that Ring of Honor title, which that Ring of Honor title is also the fastest title we've ever sold at the shop. We owned it less than 24 hours.
Yeah.
Which I can't believe like it sold that fast. So I was like, "Oh, Ring of Honor, that's cool."
Yeah, we still have that big Hogan one in there. That's just been chilling. And they're not even like outrageously priced. That is a very reasonable price for that belt.
Yeah,
like the ROH belt was very reasonable.
Big Fandu, is that what it's called? The Hogan one?
I think so.
Yeah, I'm shocked we still have that one.
But the ROH one, you price them your prices are so reasonable. That's the thing. Like that belt, like I was interested in it just because it was so reasonably priced. Like when you had me price it, I was like, "Oh, that's not bad at all. I could afford that." That's like when I bought my first belt off Greg, that US title, like it was super reasonably priced. Like you can't beat if you can find a title for a good price. Like
and that thing too is that Ring of Honor title. That one was hard to find.
That was one of like the last, like like Cody was like the last one to hold it or something like that. Like just right before.
Yeah, because that was the one he said he got it at the last Ring of Honor show that was in Pittsburgh, I think he said.
Stage AE, yeah.
And he's like, I bought it knowing that Ring of Honor's going on there. So, yeah, but it sold real fast, which shocked me. I have 2 questions in closing.
Okay.
One, I don't know why this just popped in my head. What was your go-to snack when you were a kid? I think it goes back to the episode with Ron where he talked about kudos. I still think about kudos and how I wish there was still a thing.
I don't even know. Oh, man. Nestle Crunch Bar. I remember it having the tin foil, and I always loved that it had.
Do they still make the big ones?
They do, but it's in a regular plastic package now, sealed on the ends. There's no
tin foil
with the sleeve, which for some reason that was my favorite thing in the world. I love those so much. Don't know why. I liked Reese's too, but that was when I think of like a candy from back then. That was the one, like that, and like snow caps going to the movies. The snow caps for some reason, which I don't like now. They're way too sweet now as an adult, but those were my favorite as a kid.
Keebler, if you're watching this, bring back Magic Middles.
Yeah, there's a lot of Keebler stuff I wish they would bring back. I don't understand. Like Taco Bell's doing nostalgia stuff now too with their food. Like all these places need to jump on that. Well,
I don't know if a lot of people know this or not, but in Warren, there's the Pizza Hut Classic, where it's just throwback Pizza Hut. So it's like the red cups. It's the oh my God, what the heck are they called? The lights, like the Tiffany lamp light.
Yeah,
thing.
It's like
I keep wanting to go there, but
I've been a handful of times because it was like right down the road from where I lived for the longest, and my buddy and I would go like for lunch every once in a while.
Then I think they also brought back the lunch buffet.
Yeah, I think they have the lunch buffet there.
And my other question would be, if you could recreate any birthday party from your childhood, what would it be?
Man. There was one where I think it was like right after Batman 2 came out. We had these Batman figurines on the cake, and it was like a vanilla cake with this chocolate frosting. And it was so good. And I remember it being like a Batman Returns like birthday. I think that might be the one.
Wrong answer. It's the one where you fought a Power Ranger that was the size of kids and had a giant head. That was the correct answer I was looking for.
I knew that's what you were going to say, but I'll tell you what. I don't remember much from that birthday.
Yeah, because you got your ass kicked by a Power Ranger.
It's probably true. I probably got a concussion. He probably
knocked you out with his giant ass head.
So I know that was my mom's friend, her son Ralph. He was like in his 20s, and he was like the coolest kid to me for the longest time because like, oh, he's like an older kid, but he was like really nice to me. He worked at the store with my mom, and he like showed up to the party, was there for a little bit, and he's like, oh, I gotta leave. I'll come back later. And then magically, a Power Ranger shows up with this giant head that you could tell like just doesn't fit properly, and we're all like making fun of him and like messing with him, and you can see as in the photo we were like basically fighting him, and then like he was there for like maybe an hour or two, and then he left, and then like Ralph showed back up again, and I was like, man, you missed the Power Ranger, knowing full well that it was absolutely him.
You missed that giant-headed Power Ranger. Oh, my God. So funny. Well, I can't even look at this picture anymore. That's why I had it turned down over here, because I keep laughing at it. Oh, I got to turn it down. All right. Well, thank you, Charlie, for coming in and sharing your childhood and your photos.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Oh, plug your podcast.
Oh, yeah. So I do a podcast about independent wrestling. We have lots of indie wrestling superstars on all the time for interviews, and we review shows. It's called The Indie Wrestling Guide. I've been doing it since 2017. We sponsor a lot of stuff. We're sponsoring Neo Pro Wrestling. We've gotten into we have our own title belt now, and we have a champion, and we're putting on some matches at shows, like co-promoting stuff, which is really cool. So kind of slowly getting into the realm of starting maybe possibly down the road running my own promotion.
And I hope one day the big-headed Power Ranger is the champion. We can only hope.
So we're going to have Alf and a big-headed Power Ranger in February at Toyhio.
Yes, February 8th, Toyhio. Come see the big-headed Power Ranger. He'll be signing autographs for free, and someone in a very bad-looking Alf costume. Until next time, peace.